Good evening, VV Nation, and welcome to the channel. My name is Glenn, Senior Stock Market Strategist for VectorVest, and always glad to bring these videos to you. Well, this is the much anticipated video for the upcoming earnings tomorrow for Nvidia. There's a lot to dive into, and I'm just going to argue the case of what I see, but keep in mind, the one thing that I do not have control over in reporting or recording the video is what the forward guidance is going to be. So I'm going to present a case. You guys make your own decisions, but we've got a lot to dive into for today. So let's start getting into the stories. First thing, Nvidia must show Blackwell chip can drive growth in earnings report. So yes, earnings is just rocking and rolling. Growth, though, is starting to fade a little bit. We're going to talk about that a little later in this presentation. I'm going to show that in a VectorVest graph. Now, keep in mind, all of this is going to be news. All of this is going to be VectorVest related. But at the end, I am going to give a personal price target that I have on the stock. So you want to make sure that you stay until the end to see that. So growth, of course, is a big thing. Nvidia is on a historic run as its GPU chips are the technology industry's tool of choice for making and deploying generative AI software. Generative AI software, that is where all of this begins from. It's all about AI. I still think that AI is in its infancy, and there's a lot of things that are going on. I've shown a lot of different aspects of the whole space, but Nvidia happens to still be the hottest stock on the planet. Everybody and their mama is investing in it. Right? Investors will want to see whether Nvidia can continue to grow at a fierce rate when the company reports its third quarter earnings on Wednesday. The biggest thing here is about expectations. How high can it go? You've always heard how low can it go, but how high can it go, and can they meet up to the expectations that are looked for in the stock? All right, next story. I wanted to show this. This came from Twitter. I wanted to show what Nvidia has been doing and why I still like the stock and like it a lot. Again, the hottest stock on the planet. Revenue growing exponentially. Income growing exponentially. Free cash flow growing exponentially. And looking at the most recent quarter, man, they have just been killing it. All right. So from that perspective, $3.5 trillion company. Guess what? Could this be the first $4 trillion valuation? Let's see. How about this? Nvidia price target up at truest ahead of Q3 results. Now, I wanted to talk about this story because it talks about what could be possibly an issue with the GPUs overheating. Yes, I have heard the stories. While we expect to hear Blackwell called out as a revenue generator in both CQ3 and 4, we believe that any slippage in the Blackwell will likely be replaced with Hopper, offering downside protection on revenue. That's a big piece of the puzzle. The GPU chips have been overheating. I've seen the stories on it. Could that be a downside to Nvidia? Absolutely. But knowing that they can fall back on the Hopper to make sure that the revenue continues to rise is a very big point when it comes down to this. I saw somebody in the chat let me know that I think that the GPU story is a big nothing burger. I don't think it's a nothing burger. It's a problem. But I'm going to put out a video on how they can overcome that with a couple of other companies. All right. Prediction. Nvidia will be the world's first $4 trillion company. I think with it being the hottest stock on the planet, it definitely could. You can see that today, prior to earnings, which comes out tomorrow, people are getting into it. 2.83%, the price has risen. I own NVDA, and I'm going to hold it through earnings. Based upon everything that I'm going to show you here, I'm going to hold it through earnings. Now, there's another side, competition, when it comes to NVIDIA. How about this? AMD-powered supercomputing overtakes NVIDIA for the first time. Very interesting story. The new El Capitan system at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California has debuted as the most powerful system on the list of the HPL score. What the flying flip is the HPL score? The L stands for LINPACK. The LINPACK benchmarks are a measure of a system's floating point computer power. The aim is to approximate how fast a computer will perform when solving real problems. Well, the GPUs, the Blackwell, how about AMD overtook them right now from the first real fastest supercomputer? So I want to talk about the aspect from the respect of competition. AMD is out there and is doing the darn thing, and everybody wants to go after Nvidia because they're the big name in the space. All right. Now, what else is Nvidia still doing? Nvidia teams with Google to design quantum AI processors. So you're talking about supercomputers, you're talking about AI, you're talking about quantum. I've done a video a long time ago on quantum computing, and I keep saying it's time for me to do another one pretty soon, and I will. But Nvidia teams with Google to design quantum AI processors. Now, let's get into the nuts and bolts. Nvidia earnings forecast. Nvidia has outperformed its overall industry in beating earnings. Nvidia, here it is, EPS estimates 100% of the time in the past 12 months, while its overall industry beat EPS estimates by 67%. And for sales, the same kind of thing. Nvidia beat its sales estimates 100% of the time in the last 12 months, where the rest of the industry did 66.58%. Again, folks, the hottest stock on the planet. And the last one is, what do the analysts think? 39 analysts out there have a consensus of a buy on Nvidia. That's not me. That's just not Vector. That's analysts in general. 39 of them have a bias of a buy on Nvidia. This consensus right now is at $165. I am going to give you right now my analyst, I'm not an analyst, but giving you my my projected rise in price, and it is going to be a rise, 18% for a cost or a buy point or a high of $170. I'm going $5 higher than the analyst. Why am I doing that? It's because I still think that Nvidia has got a lot of upside. All right, so those are the numbers. They got the high here of $200, a low of $90, an average of $165. That's based on the analysts that are out there. All right, now let's get into it and look at it from a VectorVest perspective. Let's change this over real quick. Here's the graph. All right, so looking at it over the last year, bottom left, top right, a little bit of drudgery coming down. After the last earnings, look at the breakdown. Last earnings, stock fell. But after that, look at the takeoff on the stock. The hottest stock on the planet, a powerhouse of a stock in the space that is a hot space, but this is the hottest stock in that space. Now, keeping in mind, the price that I gave doesn't incorporate the whole idea of forward guidance. But looking at VectorVest, we know that earnings is the engine that drives the stock's price higher. Over the last year, earnings per share forecasted just continues to rise nicely. This is where I get concerned, though. The earnings growth rate is starting to pull back a little bit. Still higher than it was a year ago, but it is still slowing. Why? The anticipation, the expectation of what Nvidia can do is being brought into question. Can it sustain what it's doing? I'm looking at the sales growth. Very troubling as well, right on par with where it was last year. If earnings is the engine that drives the stock's price higher, the sales growth or the sales is the fuel behind the engine. That catches my attention. Now, even though growth is falling, earnings growth is still at 54%. And guess what? Even though, the sales growth is falling, the sales growth is at 262, which means that they're still selling way far and above to maintain the earnings growth. Even though it's starting to fall a little bit, it is still particularly high. As we get closer and closer to earnings, the average volume is starting to fall, but still sitting at 200 million shares of average volume. And of course, using, again, the VectorVest system, relative safety is the ability for a stock to meet or exceed its earnings expectation. On a scale between 0 and 2, it's at 1.47. So everything is there for the stock to beat earnings, to beat revenue, to rise. It's going to be very interesting to hear what they have to say about the Blackwell units. Now, part of that story about the hopper showed that the hopper to absorb if the GPUs are having a problem with the heating of the chips, the hopper is still there. People are still going to be able to get that, and it may offset and absorb some downside because of the GPU. But we're going to have to wait for the sales call tomorrow, the earnings call tomorrow. Ryan and I will be live with that going into tomorrow after the bell and the market closes. If you want to be there, let's hear live together what the earnings call says. And again, I think the GPU issue is not a nothing burger. It could be an issue, but let's hear what they have to say about it. And based upon what they say, could move the stock up or down. And we saw on the last earnings, as we see here, the stock price fell, found a level of support. And look at, it fell down to, let's talk about that. It fell down to a price point of 102.83, and look at where it's at right now, 143. It definitely took out my last price prediction. So again, I think I'm looking at an 18% move, $170 win. I think by the end of the year, I think that we hit those points, 18% move to the upside and $170 from 143 as a price target by the end of the year. But it's all going to depend on what the forward guidance is. And if the forward guidance comes in good, I think the stock takes off tomorrow and takes off in a big way. But if people are not left happy with that, the stock's price will probably fall tomorrow. But even on the last fall, look how resilient the stock was enough, because it is still the hottest stock on the planet. I don't know how many times I've said that in this video, but it is. And the VectorVest software proves that the stock does have more upside potential. Folks, that's it in a nutshell. I know this is a big anticipation of stock earnings for this quarter, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully, if you like the content that we just did here today, make sure you hit the like button. If you're brand new to the channel and you like this content, please hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you'll be alerted to when videos like this come up. With that being said, folks, this video is over. And until the next time, see ya. Here, Black Friday, we got all the big screen TVs that we could ever want. This Black Friday here at VectorVest, take an opportunity to invest in yourself. The unbelievable price of 99 cents for a trial of the VectorVest software can put you on the path to financial freedom, and you can get whatever you want on any Black Friday going forward. www.vectorvest.com/YT.